Hi there, my name's Andrew. I'm the CEO of Carbonaught, and Carbonaught delivers climate smart agriculture. And what that means is we convert degraded agricultural land by building layers of soils that are more fertile, more climate resilient, and act essentially as a carbon removal platform for the future of sustainable farming. One of problem spaces we were looking at as a team a few years ago was sort of kickstarted by this statement by the World Bank that said, hey, look, the global food system is no longer fit for purpose. And the two main reasons it gave was that we have to boost food production by 50 to 70%. And the land upon which we have available to do that is shrinking at the rate of between 5 and 10 million hectares, or is expected to over the next 25 years. And then they overlaid this other problem of, okay, the ag sector is responsible for between 25 and 35% of global emissions, and it's not going anywhere. And in the first instance, we took a step back and looked at that problem and went, well, it seems like an awful lot of the world's problems are being tied in a bow and then dropped at the feet of farmers to go solve. And that kind of got us thinking. And then when we put ourselves in the farmer's shoes and went to the cupboard of solutions, we found that what is in that cupboard is quite limited. They've got very limited levers to pull. And there's a whole bunch of reasons, but let's say on the production side, the essential paradigm of more land and more fertilizer due to the prices of both and interest rates where they're at just wasn't an option. And that's for rich countries. Poorer countries have a much more acute problem there. And then on the emissions side of things, I guess even the most sort of ambitious and sort of ready to deploy technologies, theoretically like EVs, there are big questions about, okay, what is the probability that they're going to roll down to farm level operations in the next 6 to 7 years? And then you're sort of getting further afield with more ambitious technologies, there's outright questions as to their efficacy and whether they're actually going to work. But again, sort of like looking, no one really was addressing, we thought elegantly, the real monster in the room. And that was this kind of feedback mechanism that's embedded within agricultural soil's role as a total carbon sink. And the core problem there that we perceived was that the entire world was talking about total carbon levels as a proxy for their effectiveness as a carbon sink, and then essentially ignoring 50% of the equation that drives that total carbon level. So simplistically, that is soil organic carbon and soil inorganic carbon. And from what we could tell, the entire world was ignoring 50% of the solution there. And the good news was for us, that was a problem. That was almost like the monster's weak point between its eyes, because that same feedback mechanism, although it was causing a world of hurt for humanity right now, if we could slow, stop, and then reverse that mechanism, it could work in our favor. Carbonaught developed a protocol and then built a business around that protocol that essentially does just that. We essentially convert rocks into layers of soil, and those layers of soil on the production side directly address three of the major causes of soil degradation, being nutrient imbalance by delivering a fertilizer effect, acidification by delivering a liming effect, and erosion by delivering soil structure. But also, crucially, through our protocol, we're able to actually not only remove CO2 from the atmosphere, but lock it up permanently and work in conjunction with existing soil organic carbon methods to actually take CO2 out of the atmosphere and re-rate or upgrade agricultural soil's role as a carbon sink. Broadly speaking, how it works is that we take rock from mining or quarrying operations. We screen it for heavy metal risk and bioavailability of those metals. We crush it up and we spread it in layers upon layers over successive years in almost like a carpet on surrounding farmland. We then set up measurement, modeling, reporting infrastructure over the top, and working with independent verification bodies like, for example, Puro and a couple of others, we commoditize the soil inorganic carbon component and sell that into open market. And our business model essentially works back up the page, whereby purchasers of those carbon credits pay for or finance projects up front, and we back propagate the value through the chain. Now, mining companies are incentivized to provide their rock to us because we deliver significant gross margin benefits in terms of load and haul costs of waste streams. So basically, less trucks moving less things, longer distances. We deliver gross margin benefits to the farmers by delivering a significant fertilizer payload at no cost. So we don't charge farmers for this application. And then the real sort of value, and I guess the question people ask is, what value do you deliver the credit buyers? And we would say, first of all, we essentially, for the credit buyers, we invert the story. So instead of talking about our carbon removal tech and how great it is, and these byproducts or co-benefits as they're called, we inverted the story and said, hey, there's a bigger narrative at play here, and you're buying into that. And as a byproduct of that process, you get carbon credits of a high quality. And what do we mean by high quality? Well, we took Greenpeace's sort of criteria for a high quality carbon offset and used that as our starting point. So we geochemically prove additionality, and crucially and somewhat subtly are able to prove financial additionality as well with our business model. The big sort of differentiator between us and the other half of the total carbon equation, which is where essentially the majority of the world's soil carbon efforts are going, is that our carbon removal is permanent. It's locked up in minerals. It's not locked away in organic matter that is susceptible to fire, flood, and drought. And by sitting in the voluntary carbon space, we remove the risk of double counting, whereby a company and a nation state claim the same carbon reduction in their reporting. But the real kicker for our clients, as their portfolio of carbon offsets moves and shifts and upgrades its weights on negative emission technologies, is our enhanced weathering process. So quick sidestep, enhanced weathering essentially involves the breakdown of rock. We're just speeding up a natural process. But I guess the way we like to think about it is, instead of thinking of a rock breaking down on top of soils, think of a rock sitting on top of soils that almost melts through CO2 dissolved in water. And as it melts, it releases nutrient-rich clays that essentially give you your soil building capability, and also react with these rock star minerals like clinopyroxene, olivine, etc., that are contained in the rock, who react with that, grab the CO2 out of that solution and bind it up forever. So that's enhanced weathering, the pub version. The kind of other factor is that while we're waiting for that breakdown to happen, our clients across the value chain can directly click into 3 other UN Sustainable Development Goal KPIs and report against them for a whole bunch of reasons, whether that's for cost of capital or sustainability reporting. So that's all the theory. We are now moving into practical realities. So we're kicking things off with a kiloton project in Queensland that is called the Zero Carbon Cane Project. And that is designed to prove that not only is carbon neutral sugar possible, but that it's profitable. And to do that, we're bringing together the full value chain of both a carbon removal project, including community engagement, local government, etc., and then overlaying that with the full value chain of an agricultural commodity production, from grower to mill to refiner to marketer to end sugar buyer. Why that's important is that project there, although quite small at a kiloton, is going to provide the blueprint for what's coming behind it. We have a series of beachhead operations already established within Australia that have the ability to scale up significantly, and overseas, which are going to follow this model to not first establish operations and then to rapidly scale thereafter. Scale we will. We took a position 12 months ago that the supply side of the carbon removal business was the harder side, and have focused on the core ingredients of that being rock and land over the last 12 months, and now have a pipeline up to the megaton scale of the required ingredients. And we're now in the last 6 weeks switching into the demand side of that equation. We've been able to find we've got a pipeline that works at the 100 kiloton to megaton scale. We're now starting to come down that curve into the smaller lots, and then bolstering that with crop buyers off the back. This is a pretty aggressive growth pipeline, but we need it, and we think we can do it. And also, we're driving towards a pretty significant vision by 2029, whereby with our clients and partners, the Carbonaught protocol will be underpinning over 1 billion tons of CO2 removal per year, having restored or restoring 150 million hectares of degraded agricultural soils around the world, and in so doing, delivering income and nutrition security to millions worldwide. Our team edge, I firmly believe we're the team to do it. I think everyone talks about how smart their team is. I think the core thing about our team is that when the mining industry generally finds a problem too hard, they call in the contractors. When the contractors used to find something too hard to understand the profitability of open cut, load and haul operations, they called my team. So myself and my two senior engineers left to form this company, and we formed the basis of the core of the team, and have our experience in remote sensing and the profitability of open cut, load and haul operations, and building software to encapsulate those processes. We then built out our team by adding world-renowned expertise across geochemistry, petrology, soil carbon measurement, and crop fertilizer use efficiency. And together as a team, we were able to first come up with a competing theory of enhanced weathering 2 years ago, and then institute and implement the trials necessary to prove that our theory was correct, from desktop up to 52 hectare field pilots. That also demonstrated our ability to create patentable science, which is just as important to us as being able to execute scaled operations. So that was my opinion. The same foundation that gave birth to Tesla and SpaceX seemed to give us a similar kind of endorsement. We got the call about this time last year, April 22, that we were going to go top 25 in the X Prize Carbon Removal Challenge. That kicked off a year of pretty frantic activity, from venture backing, entering our pilot site, entering production, getting patents submitted in both the US and Australia, spinning up a US subsidiary, just tipping over into revenue generation earlier this year. But the last 6 weeks have been really denoted by moving into that commercialization phase, finding those gaps in those previous pipelines of CO2 buyers. Whereas 6 months ago, our sales pipeline under NDA was sitting at about 10,000 tons per year of demand. That number is now sitting above 100 million. So even if we discount that by, which is what we do, discount that by 90%, for example, we're still looking at over an order of magnitude of demand compared to what we can supply, we think, by 2025. So we've pulled together the supply side, we've pulled together the demand side, and now it's really a case of taking the opportunity that's ahead of us to sort of deliver that vision and really start driving towards becoming an agricultural commodity powerhouse for the 21st century. To that end, we're doing a major raise in June, and we're in, I guess, what we would call the courting phase now, with potential leads for that round, with a strong focus on our Australian players up until about mid-April, when we head over to the US to speak at the Carbon Negative Conference, where our focus will shift to our US potential leads as well. We're looking to close the round around mid-June, with DD and settlement wrapping up by August, so that we can spin up that portfolio of projects ready for X Prize submission later this year, but also really to keep to that timeline of delivering scaled carbon removal and climate smart agriculture. So if you're looking to be part of that journey, whether as an investor with the company, and you want to be on board with us over the next 5 to 10 year journey as we build out this company, we'd love to hear from you. But also for carbon credit buyers, as I said, we think there is a compelling proposition of the story you get to buy into, backed up by really solid, high quality credits in a space where all the major players are now starting to expand their exposure to in terms of negative emission technology. It's a technology that makes sense and it ladders up beautifully into a climate smart agriculture play. And ultimately, what it's going to be able to do is help Carbonaught deliver and underpin a new way of growing food and fiber around the world. We're Carbonaught and we do carbon removal and food security at scale. Cheers.